Welcome to the West Ham Voice. I'm on a train. I'm on my way back from Hastings to London. I've had a good day out with all the Hastings Hammers, and thank you all for your hospitality. Thank you all for all the nice words, you know, sort of the encouragement about the West Ham Voice channel, etc. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to talk a little bit about Lucas Paqueta and the latest updates on him, but I just want to sort of mention some of the things that some of the Hastings Hammers said. You'll see a video of them. I'm going to maybe put that out on Saturday evening or maybe Sunday, you know, and we were watching the FA Cup final of 1975, and I asked them, you know, how did you feel that watching that kind of game in comparison to how the game is being played in this day and age? And all of them said how much free-flowing it was, how much nicer it was to watch a game where, you know, there wasn't a lot of interference. The referee was hardly noticeable. Of course, he blew for, you know, certain things, but you know, on the whole, he allowed the game to flow. Some of the challenges that were put in this day and age would have received a yellow card, maybe even a red card on some of them. And how wonderful it was to watch football in the way that it should be played without all the interferences. Anyway, you'll see that video in further detail when I put it up on the channel. Now, Lucas Paqueta. Now, we've already heard the main news is he was charged. He had 6 charges against him from the FA, and from what we understand, although it's not been made official, you know, the player himself and his you know, his lawyer and all that have been made aware. That our understanding is that the 4 serious charges of spot fixing, he's been found not guilty. Now, there are 2 further charges. Apparently, if you remember, he was asked to hand his mobile phone in. He did, and it was returned. Then he was asked to hand it back again, and he turned around and said, well, I've got a new phone now, I've discarded the old one. So there might be a misdemeanor charge, a couple of misdemeanor charges that they might find him guilty of. But in comparison to what the spot fixing charges were, where spot fixing would have been extremely serious, and he would have ended up getting maybe a possible lifetime ban, you know, the lesser charges of misdemeanor, not handing the phone in, you know, with evidence, etc., would result in maybe, if he's found guilty of those, maybe receiving a hefty fine. But no, you know, he won't be banned or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying it will happen, but there's a possibility that still lingers over his head. But the worst thing, the charges of spot fixing, obviously, as you've already heard, have been, you know, he should be found not guilty of. There'll be an announcement. It's a surprise that the FA haven't announced it yet, but it's Saturday now. It's 8 o'clock in the evening. It's highly unlikely it's going to be announced now. Very unlikely it's going to be announced on Sunday. But officially, we expect an official announcement on the Paqueta issue on Monday. So we wait for that. That means Lucas Paqueta is now a valuable asset to West Ham United. It means now that he's valuable in 2 ways. He's valuable to us because he'll continue playing. He's not going to be banned from playing. And it's also valuable if we decide to actually sell him. Now, there's a lot of speculation that Sullivan is going to immediately sell him, you know, and that's possible. You know, his value now is probably worth maybe 45 mil, give or take, maybe even 50 mil, who knows. Now, the only way I would agree, or I would be happy, well, I'm not going to be happy, but the only way I'd accept Lucas Paqueta to be sold is if we're going to go straight out and get ourselves 2, maybe even 3 midfielders, possibly 2. And the 2 midfielders I'd want, even though I think it's a bit of a long shot, would be James McCauley and Harvey Elliott. Now, imagine if we got those 2 players as replacements to Lucas Paqueta. Now, I like Paqueta, you know, with this whole issue lifted off his shoulders, he could go back to being quite superb for West Ham United. So maybe you keep, he's only 27, maybe you keep him. But if you do sell him, then go out, all out, and get McCauley and Elliott. Now, many people are going to say, well, hang on a minute, Elliott, Liverpool want 40, 50 mil. McCauley, Man City want 30, 35 mil. Well, they don't. You know, that's the stories out there. But I think a deal for Elliott, at best, he'll fetch 35. Now, what Liverpool are trying to do, they're trying to create a bidding war, you know, and there possibly are a lot of teams interested in both McCauley and Elliott. But what they're trying to do is create a bidding war. I don't think anyone would actually buy Elliott with the greatest of respect to him. I think he's a class little player, a young player, but I don't think anyone's going to pay 40 or more for him. With regards to McCauley, is in his last year of his contract, you know, for Man City to expect 35 mil is a little bit far-fetched. So I don't expect Man City to have anybody bidding 35 mil for a player that's only got a year left of his contract and only has had limited Premier League experience like McCauley has as well. But that will be the only way. I mean, I know there are other players dotted around that we're linked to, midfielders, but you know, to bring in players like McCauley and Elliott to replace Paqueta, if Paqueta is sold, would be fine. There's another thing to consider. McCauley doesn't work in the way that would go for a McCauley or an Elliott. You know, McCauley doesn't buy players in the £30 million range. McCauley will identify players in the 10, 15, 20, 25 million price range. I've been saying this all through the summer transfer period. You know, we are not likely to see West Ham United spending big money on one player. So that makes me think that there are other players in the pipeline. If we do sell Paqueta, there are other players in the pipeline that might cost us maybe 15 to 20 million each. And I think that's where the market is. And they may be players that many of us may not have heard of. And I know what's going to happen if Paqueta is sold and then we get two midfielders that no one's heard of or vaguely heard of. There's going to be an outcry. But you've got to understand the McCauley process. You've got to understand the McCauley sort of model. You know, McCauley, you know, doesn't identify players who are expensive. He identifies players who are good, up and coming, will cost us very little, like the El Hadji Malik Diouf. You know, £19 million is a good price, because if he's worth 50 in a season or two, it'd be well worth doing that. And I think if you think about West Ham United and what we've got at the moment, our only sellable asset now after Kudus is now Paqueta. He's our main sellable asset, but he will still be a sellable asset even in a year's time. So if we keep Paqueta for another season, next season he'll be worth 30, 35 mil because he's experienced. Unlike Elliott and unlike McCauley, who aren't fully experienced, you know, they're not worth that money. But even if we kept Paqueta for one more season, you know, with 1 year to go, he's got an option of another year as well. We could sell him in a year's time for 30, 35 million. We could maybe sell him now for 40, 45 million. So it's going to be interesting to see what Potter does. When the senior source was asked, you know, so does that now mean that we will sell Paqueta now that he's off? He said it's totally down to the manager. You know, the decision of whether we keep Paqueta or sell him is totally down to Graham Potter. Now, Graham Potter can go one of two ways. He can turn around and say, I'll keep him, he's useful, he's going to be a great asset to me, you know, I'll keep him for another season and we'll build on what we've already got. Or he can say, I'll sell him now, you know, and then use the money to get players in. Now, if you sell him now, unless you've got agreements for players to come in, there's no way of knowing whether you can replace Paqueta with really suitable replacements. So it's a bit of a gamble. I think, and I may be wrong, I think Potter's going to be kept. I think Paqueta is going to be kept for another season. We're going to get another season out of him. And it looks as if, I know he plays better, you know, when he creates chances, he kind of plays a bit deeper. But what we've been seeing in pre-season, he's been playing a lot further forward. And I just wonder if Potter is going to go, he's going to be my number 10. And I'm going to make sure I strengthen behind him. You know, don't know if Alvarez is staying or whether Potts will get game time, etc. Maybe Potter's already thinking, I've got enough. Use Paqueta further forward, put Alvarez and someone like Potts in behind him, and that's our midfield. And I think a lot of fans will go, yeah, I'll have that. So it's going to be interesting. So if Paqueta is sold, I think we'll get two players in, and maybe two players not many people have heard of. If Paqueta is kept, I think potentially in certain games. He'll be used further up front, and you'll have the cushion of Alvarez and another Potts behind him. And I can see that working. So at this moment in time, I'll just recap. The 4 serious charges of spot fixing look as if it looks as if he's going to be exonerated of that. And then when it comes to the lesser charges, it's quite possible that he will get, he'll be charged for that. He'll be found guilty, and it'll be a lesser charge of, like, he'll get a fine. So let's see how it goes. So thanks for watching. Watch out for the video that I said about the Hastings hammers, and I'll see you all soon.